What's up everybody, Bandit here for another Taco Tuesday. So if you cannot tell already by the change in scenery, I am back home from school. My exams finished up last Wednesday, so you did see Chad doing a couple videos last week by himself. You're seeing me by myself again now. Chad and I live about an hour apart when we're both living at home, so not too far away, but for the next coming weeks, you'll probably be seeing us do videos separately here. But a huge thanks to Chad for taking over last week while I was finishing up my test. Everything went well, and I'm glad to be back home, that's for sure. So now that I am back home, I am traveling a lot more on some country back roads. You know, speed limit somewhere between 40 to 55. Never going really too fast, but already I have seen a huge increase in my fuel mileage. So as the truck sits right now, we're looking at 21.4 miles to the gallon. Since I've been home, it's been averaging between 21 to about 21 and a half. And actually, I had a trip the other day, and for that particular trip, it said I got 27 miles to the gallon. Now, obviously, and I can already hear people in the comment section typing in, but it wasn't just an all downhill trip. It was about 20 miles, just going back and forth between small towns here. But I think that's a really great number. Now, obviously, that's not a tank average, but just for a trip, I think that's spectacular, and you know, I'm definitely not going to ask for a whole lot more than that. But overall, the truck's doing great. I was just talking to Chad. His truck sounds like it's doing just fine as well. I did just cross over to 19,000 miles, so I expect a couple videos going up here for the 20,000 mile experience. But for right now, the truck's doing great. It seems to be breaking in better and better, and everything's doing just fine. There's a turkey running across the road. How about that? Glad to be home. But we do have some other things to cover this week, and actually it is still Toyota news. So Toyota released some information this week about the Million Mile Tundra. We have gotten a couple stories on it from the leading automotive journalist websites, you know, Motor Trend, Truck Trend, those type of websites, and it sounds like they did buy the truck back from the original owner. It does have a little over 1 million miles on it, and they did finish the process of completely tearing the truck apart. What they found actually is pretty incredible. So the guy that originally owned the truck, the owner, I believe his name was Victor, correct me if I'm wrong there in the comments, but he's a pretty hefty gentleman, and it sounded like for his line of work, he would drive back and forth across the country. He'd have a pallet of goods loaded up there in the bed, sometimes maxing out the payload numbers on the truck, and he did that back and forth across the country for 1 million miles. Now, the truck was a 2007 Tundra, which was the first year of the second generation Tundra, and he did just get a new truck that Toyota gave him recently when they wanted to buy back his 1 million mile Tundra. And again, Toyota completely deconstructed that truck, and basically there was nothing wrong with it. The door handle still worked, the glove box handle here still worked, or the center console handle rather, and the glove box handle both worked. Like I said, he was a bigger gentleman, and the seat actually still worked. And actually, they put the truck on the dyno, and it made fine power coming off the dyno. Now, obviously, the engine was well broken in by that point, and actually the parts weren't in tolerance anymore, but they were saying the engine was actually so broken in that there was, you know, very little friction against the parts, and everything operated actually really well. And the way that they would score their quality testing, like on a new engine per se, if they would hook that up to a dyno, the old engine actually scored a 99 out of 100. So it would still be passed as a perfectly working motor after 1 million miles. So it's hard to say how long that truck could have still been on the road, but you know, after 1 million miles, I think it definitely had a pretty good service life, and they deconstructed it to see what all happened. A lot of the internal markings on the motor were all still there and not completely worn off, and everything was working well. And they actually said that there were no engineering flaws after all that time on the truck. So, you know, nothing too big of a deal. There was some damage from those pallets being loaded into the bed, but you know, even with those heavy loads being carried back and forth across the entire country, there were no signs of frame damage or leaf spring damage or anything like that, and it sounds like the truck held up really well. So, you know, that's a pretty fantastic story. Now, obviously, I'm nowhere close to that here on my Tacoma, but we'll see how far it goes. And here on the third generation trucks, I have seen a couple people into the 50, 60, 70,000 mile range, but obviously these trucks are still fairly young, but it'll be interesting to see how far they can go here in a couple years. So there's some other Toyota news that actually surfaced last week. Was the SEMA Land Cruiser that Toyota built last year was actually just put to the test by NASCAR driver Carl Edwards. So he climbed behind the wheel of that tuned Land Cruiser. I believe they said it had about 1,000 horsepower, and maxed the vehicle out to see just how fast it would go. Now obviously this is not a factory Land Cruiser. Factory Land Cruisers do have the 5.7 liter V8, but obviously don't go anywhere near the top speeds that they were claiming this vehicle could go. But with Carl Edwards behind the wheel here, they were able to achieve over 230 miles per hour. Now this is pretty incredible, and obviously it's nowhere close to a factory vehicle like we just were talking about, but this actually exceeded even Toyota's expectations, and you know, definitely is an interesting feat of engineering. You know, obviously we'll probably never see anything like that ever come to production, but with the Hellcat powered Jeep Grand Cherokee and all the other crazy, ridiculously fast SUVs that we have now, you know, maybe we could have at least a turbo Land Cruiser before too long and see what that could do. But you know, there's not any word of that as of now, but it is pretty interesting to see what happens when you put a bunch of really smart engineers and mechanics together in a room and see what all they can unleash here on these newer vehicles. So a few weeks ago, we did talk about the Colorado ZR2s hitting dealers and finally coming to customers after all the teasing and reveals and everything else that we've been seeing over the past couple months. And it sounds like they're really doing well. A few of the press vehicles have been getting around, and you're starting to see more and more articles and videos and everything else about them. And it sounds like it is a very impressive vehicle. It sounds like it's a lot of fun. It's kind of the best possible combination of a desert runner and a rock crawler in a mid-sized truck, and it sounds like GM has absolutely knocked it out of the park here with the new ZR2. So I'd love to get my hands on one sometime. I don't currently know anyone that has one, but if you do and they'd be willing to let me do a review on their truck, I would absolutely love that, and be sure to keep me in mind. And a little bit worse news this week, there has been a large recall on Ram trucks talking about their airbags. So it sounds like there's some sort of programming or software error going on with their airbags. It's affecting 2013 through 2016 trucks, it sounds like, both the normal Ram 1500 and the heavy duty trucks. So if you or anyone you know or love has one of those, be sure and check that out. It sounds like you can either run the VIN number online to figure out if your truck is affected, but they also are putting some letters in the mail if Ram does know that your truck is affected. But you know, that's definitely not something you want to be messing with. Airbags save a lot of lives, and you know, if all of the safety features on your truck are working according to plan, you know, you're definitely better off. And along those lines, I actually had someone on Instagram send me a picture of their truck. Unfortunately, they were T-boned recently in their new 3rd gen Tacoma, and they couldn't be more thankful of the engineering and everything that went into the truck. It seemed like the side curtain airbags went out, and all the rest of the safety features worked exactly according to plan. And even after being T-boned by, I believe it was some sort of wrecker or flatbed or something like that, they were able to walk away with only a scratch on their knuckle, and the truck did hit the driver's side. So you know, it's never good to hear stories like that, you know, a brand new truck was totaled or anything like that. But when you realize that the person was okay, that's really all that matters at the end of the day. You know, when that person can go home and be with their family again, it doesn't get any better than that. So that actually played a large role into me getting one of these new trucks. You know, I am on Interstate 81 a lot, unfortunately, and I wanted to have a safe truck, and I wanted to be able to get back home to my family at the end of the day. And you know, that really means a lot to me, and it means a lot to be in an actually safe truck. So keep all that in mind. It sounds like these trucks are really doing well, and everything's going great there. So our last story this week takes us back to the Jeep JL prototype hunting. You know, the JL is the next generation Wrangler that we've been talking about, and it sounds like the interior shots have actually been spied most recently, and it does seem to have the large, I believe it's an 8.4-inch Uconnect touchscreen there in the center stack, and that should be a huge upgrade over the current JK Wranglers. You know, they are pretty Spartan-like on the interior. There's not a whole lot there. They do seem to be fairly rugged, but there's just not a whole lot of creature comforts there to really make your travel all that comfortable. But we're seeing more and more spot shots of these every week. Hopefully we'll be getting a true unveiling here before too long. You know, it's hard to say whether they'll do that at, you know, possibly the next upcoming auto show, or if they'll just reveal it online. It seems like a lot of these reveals are starting to switch to online, just hit everyone there at one time. But it'll certainly be interesting to see. You know, we're living in a really interesting time where a lot of vehicles are coming out very, very quickly, and there's a lot of hype around this new Wrangler. So really looking forward to that coming out. That pretty much wraps up everything we have to talk about for this week. So thank you all very much for tuning in again. Have a fantastic week, everybody. We'll catch you next time.